Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 107th episode of the House of Light expansion for Book of Hours, our first run of the expansion through YouTube. And I am hoping that there aren't any fires. I do have quite a bit to catch up on. I don't have anything on my to-do list, unfortunately, but I have a couple of ideas in terms of where we might be going. We have Sacrosalis Invicti as well as Deep Mandiac. And I do know I wanted to make some progress through my through the Tree of Wisdoms. In fact, I think it's a little funny that I don't have a to-do list because I thought I'd worked something out here. So Sacrosalis. So that's at 5. That needs to be at 6. All right, so I'm wondering if I set myself up with... Okay, we've got a storm. Oh, yes. Nope, I remember now. Okay, so let's read some books to begin with. Excuse me. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. I'll actually mention, too, for those of you who are fans of the lore and the setting for this game, I found out something kind of interesting in one of the latest Weather Factory posts. So it's got a letter from Nina Lagasse. Now, what I didn't know was that... well, okay, I might be misreading this, but it seems like the original intention was to have a set of letters for each branch of the Tree of Wisdoms. And so, but I think ultimately they weren't delivered. So what this makes me think is that I always had that question in terms of what the 3 paintings that convinced Julian Cosley to think differently and sort of write his second edition, what they were. And in fact, those are inside the letter, as well as, you know, some other details in terms of traveling at night. So for those of you that have not checked it out, if you have the game on Steam, they actually included a link in sort of the developer updates. But you can also find it on the Weather Factory website. I won't read it here. It would be fun to actually go through the letters, but I know I sometimes struggle to make progress in the game during the streams as it is. So, but it's one that's probably worth mentioning, especially because Nina Lagasse is an interesting character, and in fact is the cover image for Traveling at Night. The Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed. But it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. The Black Book of Brittany, a volume of ink lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman Conquest. The black flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deep, and they may not be hidden forever. The black flower, spoken of as a doom or geese, can be held at bay with the last ink of power, brewed from the pale mixture in the presence of sufficient winter with the arts of containment. And the origins of hours. The sage and ecstatic Soham, a frequent visitor to the mansis, claimed to have discoursed with the beach crow in person. Soham later insisted on a sky burial. Soham's writings veer from poetry to confession. He identifies from flesh those who were mortal, from blood those who arose from sacrifice, from light, entry from the glory, and from stone those who arose before his knowledge. He insists that the moth was the first god who was blood, but later contradicts himself and claims it was the Red Grail. The mansis was different before the first god came from light, but never doubted existed even then. So we should need one more to get Sacrosalis Invicti to where we need it. I don't know if I made a final decision in terms of Deep Mandiac, and I really should probably get on with that. But let's Let's run the clock for the last 30 seconds. And I can make my decisions then. Nope. Unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous and emptiness can reveal all truths. Now, this actually caught me by surprise. It seems like I probably was making some sort of decision with the Deep Mandaic then, possibly even just to bring these lower level ones up. But I am going to repurpose the Savage Hymn for what I need here. And the Foss will do. Actually, I think it's the only one I could... No, we could use Whist as well. At last, I'm something of an authority in this. Improve the skill to level 6. Okay, so now wouldn't be a terrible time for me to look at the Tree of Wisdoms. I don't know if the fact that I have this extra memory generating here was an indicator that I'd already made a decision in terms of how I'm going to use the Deep Mandaic, or if it's a, if I just made a mistake. But I guess the way for me to think about this one is that I do have Forge and Lantern. I'm slightly inclined to actually let this just run out, but... Okay. Now, I believe what I was working on for the Tree of Wisdom, so Door and Wall should already be committed. Same with Anbury and Lapidary. After which we would take Sacra Solis and Victi, and then that would have unlocked Sacra Lamea. And actually, I think even Great Signs and Great Scars would be eligible there. Okay, so if I'm looking for Forge, Spices and Savors has been committed, so I shouldn't go there. Menascate Reflections, though. Transformations and Liberations. Hieroglyphics. Okay. If I recall correctly, I think I had said that I wanted to find... Bells and Braziers might be... Okay, Disciplines of the Hammer's already been committed. And then just in the interests of completeness, so I don't think any of these should have Forge, but doesn't hurt to check. So there should just be 3 missing. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Okay. So the last step here does give us Lantern as well, so I want to take a quick peek at those. So Glaziering and Lightsmithing. We've got Purifications and Exaltations. Now, I did sketch out a few options in terms of where these can go. I don't have a complete listing of everything, but I have some basics in place. Watchman's paradoxes. Oh, lordy. Okay. Auroral contemplations and disciplines of the scar. Okay. Pyroglyphics again. I don't think Inks of Revelation is relevant here because we've already committed it. Okay, I can live with this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 candidate memories. Now there's a couple of ways for me to look at this this issue. So for Horomachistry, again, we've got 6, 7, maybe 8, but of course we've already got what we need through Ithistry. One other thing for me to look at, so we've got Grail and Knock, we've got Edge and Moon, we've got Heart and Nectar, Moon and Sky, sorry, Moth and Sky. It's actually the Rose that's sort of falling behind. The funny thing is that nothing I can do can really help that right now. So, what do I want to do with this? The big thing right now is that I've kind of got all the different branches that I want to move down in place. This is really just a question. Whoa! This is really just a question in terms of where I want to be applying my my points. Now, I suppose one thing that I could do really quickly would be to say, is there something that's sort of on the margin, right? Is there something that's about to be committed to the Tree of Wisdoms, and it's maybe 1 or 2 points away? So for something like Horomachistry, that's kind of hard to say, because I think it was going to be like Great Signs and Great Scars, and I actually think it might have been Edicts Martial I was going to put in 9, just because I remembered that that can go into Horomachistry, and I usually put that one up to 9. I think that's a pretty common thing too. I don't think that's unique in my case. Now, I know in the case of Ithistry, we have something like Pyroglyphics, so I could actually put Pyroglyphics in position 6. The one drawback here, Pyroglyphics also goes into Illumination, but I actually have quite a bit of space available for Illumination. The one drawback here is that that would put more weight on me to level up Glassblowing and Vessel Crafting to an appropriately high level. On the other hand, I don't necessarily think that that one's impossible, because we're going to have a lot of preliminal meter coming down the pike. So maybe one easy answer that I have here would be to take Ithistry and push that ahead. The other consideration that I might have would be, we've got, I think Whist is the one that I have the biggest shortfall on. And Whist would be a, I can never get this right. I think it's a Horomachistry, sorry, a Hushery and a, it's Hushery and, oh, hang on, it's Ithistry. I keep getting that wrong. Okay, actually that pushes me a little bit more towards it. Now, I don't think Pyroglyphics gives me, okay, well, there we go. I think that settles it then, Pyroglyphics. All right. So I'm just going to take a minute here to erase a few things. Pyroglyphics. Okay, so I need 4 and then 4 and then 5. And that's basically as much Lantern and Forge as I can get. But that's also not that difficult for me to get. So I don't have any use for the I don't have any use for that storm anymore. But let's go for, okay, so we can use the Arab. So it's Whist, Shapt, Metal, and Fost that are in reserve for the purposes of leveling up. And then I want, again, it should be forge and lantern, but let me just double check that. Yep. Okay. Remembering that I already have the regret. So foresight. Revelation. Let's do a pattern. Trying to remember where I... Maybe we're on to Old Coppernose? Okay, now I'm not gonna... I won't open up the rest of these quite yet. I'm just gonna hold on. And this is just because we may be able to take advantage of Denzel's abilities here. We've already done the... Oh. Yes, we've already done the salon, so everybody's gone home already. I guess the next step's going to be figuring out... I'm going to want to... Or actually, I think I remember why I got the storm. I think I want to do a... Not a wind and waiting, but an ascendant harmony again. Oh, let's keep talking to Denzel. But yeah, so I think the next step is I'm going to have to figure out what books that I want to read next. We should be able to get through that today. I should probably hop on that before we let too much of the day get away from me. But now, we did generate a whole lot of loss, so... Oh, this is welcome. Contraband jetsam, flung overboard in furtive haste. Okay, where I find the space is another question. Tried my best. Nope, was unexpected. Alright, I forgot that I had Chaonic Theoplasma, so that's 7 heart versus... Okay. So, let's... I don't remember if we have one of these that helps... Or that has a heart element to it. I'd like to clear it out. Oh, well there it is. Quenchings and Quellings. So, just as a hypothetical, if I took Quenchings and Quellings and I added a core, yep, then I just need to add a memory and we're good to go. Well, memory and a tool, but... Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Cybele use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestess to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. Okay, so let's, I want a specific ordering for these things, so I am going to use the Mazarine Fife to try and make the Ascendant Harmony first. Okay, right, because it's not a Sacralamea question, but Bells and Braziers should cover us. And we're one short, but easy to replace. Okay. So there's the bright sky music. Let's move on now to... Alright, I'm going to use Collar's Desk for this. So we'll take the Shaft, and we're basically just going to read either something for a storm or for a cheerful ditty. In this case, we'll read Instruments of the Heart. And that's going to specifically be so that we can deal with the experiment beyond sight. Okay, the skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So one of the things that I want to do here is take advantage of the touch. I'm just trying to think if there's a... we'll use the severe chair in this case. Investigate the object. So that's just going to give me an extra element of the soul to play around with when it comes time to level up. Or sorry, not element of the soul. It's going to give me an extra memory to play around with when it comes time to level up the hieroglyphics. Okay, Sacra Solis Invicti, the rites of the Church of the Unconquered Sun and certain secrets of the gods from light. A light above. The new king's light shines brightly. The sanctioned version of the Book of Suns tells us that he may herald the unification of the gods who were light into a new sun and splendor. We should seek answers in Horomachistry. Sacra Lamea, the rites of an order of immortals who have tried to remain apart. These rites touch on secrets of hours of the Mansus, chiefly gods who were flesh and gods from light. Of limits, the hours are not all-powerful. There is a place beyond their reach where mortals and immortals might build a shining city of iron and ivory. Horomachists understand the hour's limits. And I just want to double-check, but I'm like 99% sure that I was going to put Great Signs and Great Scars in Horomachistry. Some glyphs are too obscure to reside in any language, but too potent to remain unwritten. The first enemy. Vac is a great scar, the first enemy of Calyptra. When the black flower blossoms on the watchman's tree, she retreats, and Calyptra protects perilous knowledge behind secrecy's veil. The nature of their enmity is a Horomachistry matter. Alright, not a bad bit of work. Now wouldn't be a bad time for me to try reading some more books to try and push up hieroglyphics, but I'm a little short on desk space right now, so I'll try to be patient. He does a lot with silence, this man. We also still have a little bit of the season left, so what'll probably happen for the next little while, there's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. I'm thinking what will probably happen for the rest of the season. I'm going to take care of hieroglyphics so I can put that into Ithistry. And I'm going to pay particular attention to these texts here. And essentially it's going to be a question of what can I use to sort of commit more stuff to the Tree of Wisdoms. I'm particularly interested in... So if I've got books... so actually, I think Sights and Sensations wouldn't be a bad example for this one. If I take Sights and Sensations... It's not yet committed. So really this is one of these things where I should be maybe reading up, getting it to that base level. So like the low-hanging fruit that I have would be something like Sights and Sensations. If it's going to go into Hushery or Nyctodromy, right, presumably it's going to either go into 8 or it's going to go into 7. There may be some lower levels here, but I suspect it's going to be 7 or 8. And so as a result, I should probably be using those memories to get that to that point. And if nothing else, just raising up those base levels will give me a clearer idea in terms of what I need to start applying these surplus books towards. Again, this isn't necessary. I wouldn't even argue that it's the most efficient way to deal with this, but it is a way that kind of helps me keep the it kind of helps me keep everything in order in my mind. This is obviously a very big game, and it's hard to keep track of everything in one go. So just having a few baseline or even just a couple of heuristics in terms of how I can level things up. There's a couple of cases of books where it's a bit too tough for me to level up, but for the most part, I haven't read certain things because of choices rather than any real impediment. A great example of this actually would be the fact that I haven't gotten any of the Newman memories. And then another one would be the fact that I haven't been using something like Orpiment Exultant to be able to read my deeds, my powers, my achievements, and the injustices perpetrated against me. Like, some of these things are actually quite easy for me to be able to read under certain circumstances, and I've just chosen not to fold that into the plan quite yet. But once I start feeling a little constrained in terms of actions, then I'll start using more items. In truth, I'm probably going to start looking at rooms to open again, because it did feel a bit bad that I had to write one of my own manuscripts for Hokabald, but we'll deal with that at a later time. The Severe Chair, unfussy marsh green upholstery. This chair is innocent of chairly secrets. All right. Advice on containment. Thyrza Blake discusses ways to keep wood things out of trouble and Mansis things in it. Thyrza is irritatingly light on specifics, insisting above all that the duties of an adept are the duties of a host, and that a conjured spirit should be kept in as luxurious a vessel as possible. Thyrza notes the similarities between the lantern-long habit of scrying, returning to the physical world despite their absence of a body, by entering a mirror or light, and Pomander's techniques of confining Mansis Long to mirrors. She wonders whether Pomander himself might be lured to visit Hush House if provided with a sufficiently alluring scrying. So the pattern in particular is helpful just because it's something that Denzel can't replace. Old Coppernose and the Softer Metal, a disgraceful compendium of ribald poetry about the habits and corruptions of Henry VIII. Henry's great misfortune, his crushing injury at a jousting bout, has left him unable to stand any straighter than a splintered withy. The most savage mockery is reserved for Henry's great debasement, where the corruption of his softer metal is supposed to have crept into the coin of the realm. The last and most serious lampoon makes seditious references to the Crucible Revolution. And A Shape in Smoke, Ambrose Westcott's exposition on tobacco blending and the oracles of the pipe. The text is spotted with sparkles throughout. Westcott observes gnomically that a pipe might be said to manifest the red flower of the watchman's tree, for when lies are burnt, wisdom arises, and vice versa. All right, so let's get to work on pyroglyphics. We've got plenty of metal to give up, so we'll use that. So satisfying to have come so far. And let's take the time to queue up the next batch. In fact, this is more or less where I'm kind of giving up on Denzel here, but I think I'll survive. So Sunset Celia and the End of Days, that should be a foresight. Sunrise Awakenings, so that's 2, or technically 3. Four. And then we need a 5th. So Regret will do. I think I did 5 letters on memory recently. Let's do Codex Acephalai. Okay, so that's pyroglyphics taken care of. Now let me just take a minute here with Sights and Sensations. That one... honestly, maybe we just... Let's just read it and sort things out later. Unfortunately, I may not have done myself any favors here, so Snow Stories is presumably my highest winter that I can throw at it. But do I have a desk with moon right now? I don't think I do. Yeah, my bad. I think in that case, then, we're going to have to leave Sights and Sensations for the next day. But it does give me a couple of other things that I can do with the day. So I'm going to drop some water. And that's in anticipation of the following. So we'll take the metal. I think Anbury will help here. Right. Okay, so I will read Glimmerings then. That way I'll use the foresight for something else. And while I'm doing that, this may be a little... Yeah, this is definitely a case of easier said than done. I think there's a couple things that I might even be able to give up to pull this off. I don't think it's worth it, though. Maybe the bitter black salts. I mean, it's closer, but I still need a solution. Yeah, so that would be what the foresight's for. Okay. Something good for me to remember for future. Honey Scar Jasmine tea would also work. While I'm at it, let's go and do some gardening. Actually, because it's autumn, let's get the Honey Scar Jasmine. And then I can't see much use for the others, so we'll do the gathering as well. Even if we wind up chucking it into the sea, it's not bad for me to have it. Okay, so that gives me a start. So what I'm going to need to do in the somewhat near future, I'm going to finish leveling up pyroglyphics. We know that that's going to happen because we'll have the memories required after reading the book. Tomorrow in game, well, also in I guess day after tomorrow in terms of broadcasts. But I'll start kind of going through this collection here. It may not be a bad idea for me to actually maybe think between recordings how I want to use these. But anyways, that's a separate conversation. But yeah, generate some memories, move them up. And then there'll be some where I'm sort of like, okay, I'm not 100% sure where this thing needs to go quite yet. But I figure at the very least being able to eliminate some of the obvious candidates, gain some of that shelf space, and then allow myself to say, okay, we're maybe one memory away from being able to level up, X, Y, or Z. Then I can start applying some of these other books. Queens of the Rivers is the only one that doesn't actually have a firm place yet. But all of that will be handled in the next episode. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you Wednesday in the next one. Until then, take care.